Hello, and welcome to the Summer of Best Ball with yours truly, Justin Herzig. It is July 26th. All 32 teams have begun training camp. We are seeing the news. We are trying to adjust. We're trying to figure out what doesn't pass the sniff test. And that's why we're here today. And as you know, all throughout the summer, I'm hosting these Underdog Best Ball streams, bringing on some special guests. You can catch us every Tuesday, Thursday, live on the ETR channel, hosted in partnership with the Owners Club. Coming soon next week, a new way to play best ball and fantasy football. Also, want to give a heads up, let people know everyone who signs up for the ETR Draft Kit Pro will still get that free $10 on Underdog. Pro version comes with all of our best rankings, content, season long, someone specials, Dynasty coverage we might see in a bit. If you already have that Underdog account, you're eligible for the free $10. Just head over to the Underdog Content Hub on ETR. That has a link to receive your free $10. And now, with us this afternoon, a true teacher and coach by profession, might just be the top props grinder in the NFL draft streets. And we brought him on board ETR to lead our Dynasty rankings and analysis, Mr. Anthony Amico. How are you doing today?
What's up, man? What a great intro. You know, I gotta clip that for future use. But yeah, I'm pumped. It's draft season. We're here, so let's just get to it.
How are you adjusting to all of the news, everything that's coming out? I mean, I think I even got to see a video of Evan Ingram not catching a pass, and adjusting.
I saw that one this morning, and I was like, "Come on!" Like, I mean, I'm like mostly ignoring 99% of this stuff, as I'm sure you are for the most part. So,
what are you not ignoring? What are you looking for that maybe says like, "Hey, maybe this actually should impact my assessment"?
Well, I think, the usage obviously is the stuff that we care about. So if we're getting consistent reports and not just like one day or one practice, like multiple days, multiple practices, that, certain guys are running with the ones or maybe some guys that we thought aren't, and we're not getting like any injury news around that. Like that's the kind of stuff I'm going to pay attention to. But like a lot of these like one-off things, like you got to give them time, I think, to marinate before we start just overreacting and moving guys up and down the board.
So you're saying when we see Isaiah McKenzie running with the ones and then realize, oh, wait, maybe that's because Jamison Crowder wasn't at practice, those two might have some level of correlation?
Yeah, there's definitely some correlation there. I mean, I will say, like, I do kind of still like Isaiah McKenzie just because but I think he's like kind of doing his own thing. Like, I don't know if it's 60-40 at the slot position, like I would still say that Crowder's a favorite there.
Right. The two games that Isaiah McKenzie was a starter, full-time starter, played, I think was like something like 83 and like 89 or 91% of the snaps. Like he smashed. Like those were great games. There's just no signs that that's what they want to do. And I think that's why they brought in Crowder. Now, if we see a Crowder injury, I think that's why I'm still trying to grab some McKenzie in the back of my drafts because I just want pieces that are attached to that offense and, kind of good quarterback there. But I agree. Okay. Enough talking. We're here to draft. Let me start getting this going. And while I do it, we're going to get chat's favorite game. 2 truths, 1 lie. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so my 2 truths and a lie. We have Daniel Jones as the best value at quarterback in drafts right now. We've got Treylon Burks as a fade at his current ADP. And we have Noah Fant still possessing tight end 1 upside.
Okay. So we have Daniel Jones as the best value of quarterbacks. We've got Treylon Burks' current ADP is a fade. And we have Noah Fant has tight end 1. And when we say tight end 1, we're talking about not the number 1 tight end, but a top 12 tight end, correct?
Top 12, yeah. He's down at tight end 21, so I figure that's like a fair range.
That's still strong. Okay. What do we think, chat? Stogie throwing some darts immediately, saying way too easy. Definitely Burks. No way on Treylon Burks. You don't fade him, brah. Bet the house. Burks is the lie. Now, here's the thing, guys. You might be surprised. No, you won't be. Let him know. What's the lie?
Yeah, I mean, of course we're not fading Treylon Burks. I mean, my goodness, like this guy's going like 3 picks ahead of Sky Moore. Like he's dropped like almost outside the top 100 right now. I think people are really just hammering this like asthma gate or, whatever you want to call his fitness level. Like, listen, we already knew that Treylon Burks was boom bust. Like this is stuff that we talked about in the Dynasty section for ETR. that's the kind of thing that I think we want to really lay into, especially in these best ball contests. Like, he still has the opportunity to be the wide receiver one. He still has the opportunity to have some portion of that AJ Brown role. Like, we're buying it. Still wheels up.
Yeah, I mean, I thought this was going to be the year. So we'll start off. Oh, thank you, Sam Chowdhury, taking an early digs. Does that leave us with an easy Jamar Chase pick, or are you gonna tilt the scale?
I mean, we gotta take the sex here.
Oh my God. Let's go. So about a week ago, I posted on Twitter that the 7 spot was the worst spot in drafts this year. And then some people push back and they're like, no, I think it's number 6. And my argument for why it's not number 6 is occasionally, and I think I've seen around like 30% of drafts, one of the top 5 does fall to 6. And that's why I'm happy to get there. You almost never, not never, but it's a lot more rare to see one of those top 5 fall to 7. We're happy with getting him in at number 6 here.
I love it, man. I mean, I think that, and I think this is something that you've noted, like, and I know Jack has tweeted about this, like, drafters are definitely more willing to take these receivers early. You can see this run of orange, like in the middle of the draft board here. But I still think that the upside of Chase warrants being taken over like some of these, I guess, like tier 2 type running backs.
100%. And this is an interesting first round. So if we look at some of the outliers here, so Sam Chowdhury going with a Stephon Diggs at number 5. We mentioned that. Even Devontae here's a little bit. Then we get Swift moving up to the first round. Eckler falling all the way to the 10 spot. Alex Berg probably in chat. Definitely in a bunch of these previously with us. So if you are in chat, Alex, congrats on that 10th overall pick. Eckler value will be a unique, probably first 2-round combo.
Yeah, I still really like Eckler. Like, that's definitely who I probably would have suggested that we take if we didn't take Chase, just because, I mean, he still has that 2-way upside. I know that Spiller's there, and he's going to do a little bit more than some of those other guys did last year. But, I mean, they have not hesitated at all to still use him heavy in the red zone, even when he is splitting. And, I know it's half PPR, but the catches are still, I mean, second, like this year, maybe to like 1 or 2 guys. Like, we're still taking that.
Yeah. I see Lindank with an interesting question. Would you ever start Chase Higgins, or is that too much of one offense? What are your thoughts here?
I mean, yeah, I'm fine with that. Like, we're talking, I mean, I think that Higgins is still like a top, like 6 to 8 receiver. Like, I have no issue having 2 of those guys. And even if we can't get Burrow later, like, there's still obviously some correlation between those 2 guys in these best balls that I think is still tasty.
Yeah, I think at the root of the question, like, no, I don't think it's a bad thing to have both Chase and Higgins. You're right. Like, it's extremely hard for them both to beat their value because of where they're getting chosen. But also when you're at the top of the draft, if they both just finish as like, hey, top 10 wide receivers, they probably also have great spike weeks and those alternate each other. Like, I think there's still a lot of value. The other is I'm not going to be drafting Jamar Chase, then T. Higgins in the second. But where Chase is going, often pick 4 or 5, you can occasionally see Higgins fall in that 3rd round. So now we're really looking at a lineup of Chase, maybe Saquon Barkley Higgins, Chase, maybe Aaron Jones Higgins. And that makes it a little more, a little more appetizing, I'd say.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that for sure.
You can save this for maybe if I join Overzet on one of those, but all we do over here is we draft value. I know he's the value hound, but maybe if I, that's got to be a bit more of a fun stream. Ain't happening here. All right, we are back on the clock right after this. No streaming value here. Starting off with Chase, what are you thinking?
I mean, I really like Andrews. I don't think that there's a huge separation actually between Andrews and Kelsey, who goes in the first. So that's kind of where I'm going here.
Let's do it. I don't mind it. I think, yeah, so I'm not going to be taking Leonard Fournette here just because with the recent news and where he's been dropping, I've often been able to get him the past week, like in that early 3rd. And so just from a portfolio perspective, I don't think it makes sense to reach there. These wide receivers, I like them. Like, what are your thoughts on that Debo, Tyreek, Higgins tier? I do believe they're a tier above the Keenan Allen and that AJ Brown next one. Are you ever reaching on them? Do you have a nice portfolio of them? What are your thoughts?
So I like Higgins the best out of those guys, and I'm not super crazy about Debo and Tyreek. Like, this is where kind of Like, I think that those are players who last year we maybe could have gotten in round 3. And now at like middle to end of round 2, I'm not quite as excited just because I think that there's paths to failure that maybe we're not considering. I mean, Debo, obviously, like, he's great. We love him. But like, there was a reason why he was like a 70th or 80th. Yeah. Like those situations definitely could revert back, especially with kind of an unknown with Lance at quarterback. And I mean, maybe Debo still gets traded, who knows? And, I feel similarly with like Hill and Waddle. Like, again, I don't like see a huge difference there, but Waddle goes way later. And you have the Tua factor, which is kind of an unknown, as well as the new coaching staff.
Well, I think that's where those three, it is interesting how these tiers are kind of have formed through the wide receiver position, because at the very top, you got the ones who have an enormous upside and also have a very high, like, expected and floor. And so there's just minimal risk of those, like the Diggs, the Lamb, and the Devontae aspects. That next tier, I think the Hill, Samuel, Higgins, they have just as high as upside as those guys we just listed. But as you mentioned, they all have question marks. Tyreek and Debo, both with new quarterbacks. I think the question mark is just like, how high can you really put someone who may be the number 2 wide receiver in his offense? And that's where, like, I think they're getting drafted in the right spot. Over the year, I've been kind of more on those running backs because I'd rather take Saquon, and before, like, that was an actual 1-to-1. I'd still rather have Fournette. We'll see where he settles with the fat lending aspect, but I think that dip has pretty much gone away. And I think if it hasn't, like, it will pretty shortly, when all we need to see is one play from him in training camp where he's not weighing 260 pounds. All right, we're coming back around. So recap, 0 RB to start off with a Chase and an Andrews. Connor and Alvin Kamara at the top if we do want to consider getting our first. I'm a huge Alvin Kamara fan. I think 30 is still a good value for him. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, right? Like, if he's not suspended, this is a smash. Yeah. And even if he is, like, if it's short, you're still going to get some value on this.
And so because we were having some conversations on Twitter, but where would he be drafted in your mind if we knew 0 suspension? Because there are some changes. You do have Jameis. You do have a couple more, Landry, Olave, like maybe Michael Thomas. So, like, there is a bit more target competition.
Yeah, there's more target competition, but I still think that, like, last year they gave him the huge workload. They still haven't added a lot of running back competition. And I'm still not, like, super sold on the Michael Thomas stuff. Like, I just want to see it before I really believe it. Just not a lot of guys with his 2-way upside. Like, I think that he's pretty comparable to, like, a DeAndre Swift, who you see go, like, mid to end of round 1.
And I mean, DeAndre Swift's obviously the comp that a lot of people are using, but when I think about the two and what their upside scenario is, DeAndre Swift still hasn't really ever gotten goal line work. And it's pretty clear they don't want him to be like their 25 touch guy. Right. Like, Jamal Williams is still there. Jamal Williams is still a perfectly adequate running back for that system. And so DeAndre Swift has fantastic pass catching upside, but I do think it's a bit limited. I mean, yeah, you're not going to you're still probably going to use some Mark Ingram and stuff when Alvin Kamara is healthy into the field, but like Alvin Kamara can still have that 15 carry, 8 reception game. And that can, 8 receptions is a lot, but like 15 carries and 6 catches is very possible for the norm for him. And I think that distinguishes him a bit from the Aaron Jones and the DeAndre Swift, where they have a very competent, and in A.J. Dillon's situation, very talented 1B. Yeah,
definitely. No, I agree with that. I guess we'll see what happens. I mean, I guess it sounds like the league is obviously just waiting to see what happens in court, and we know how some of that stuff can just get pushed off. So I think it's very, very, very live versus the ADP.
BFFL often in these drafts competing against us, missed out on this one, but is already saying what we're doing in the week 17, week 18. Like, gosh, not only are we already having to give up like on our snipes where they see what we're thinking, now we've got BFFL already telling them who they need to snipe from us in week 17. I mean, in round 17. We'll see if he lasts, but you might be right. We'll see. All right, coming back around. Ooh, I'm noticing James Conner is still on the board. That'd be an interesting one if River Rat lets that fall. River Rat might want to go. Oof.
Oh yeah, dude. Just lock it in, James Conner. What are we doing here? I mean, what are we doing?
Yeah, like I mean, hey, River Rat. I know you were going with the Devontae Adams, Darren Waller. That makes complete sense. Oof. I'm not even going to try to understand it, but we.
I love James Conner. Like at 32, his ADP. Like I would argue that it's still too low before arguing that he's going earlier than he should. Like I mean, this dude has again 3 down plus goal line upside. Like even without the third down stuff last year, absolute smash. Like the whole offense is back. It's better. Like they added Marquise Brown. Like I love this.
His only risk, I think, is really injury. Like right. I don't see Darrell Williams or Benjamin ever taking over that without an injury. Now they could play a similar to Chase Edmonds role, where like maybe getting that 8 to 10 touches a game. But I don't think it's a bad thing either if James Conner is getting the higher value touches. And yeah, the amount of touchdowns. Oh, I forgot the stat, but I just remember quoting it from like a DFS standpoint. He had so many touchdowns in that like 6 or 7 week span near the end of the year. Yeah, exactly. Eno and Darrell are the two behind him. And I'm on team Eno. I think Eno actually ends up playing that number 2 role. I think he provides a skill set that's a little more complementary to James Conner. But if Darrell makes the team, and James Conner was to go down, I think it's more likely Darrell Williams plays a bit more of the every down, or maybe like the lead in the workhorse. So I think that's an interesting situation where like you can't really draft Eno because you think he's going to take over if Conner falls. But I think Eno more likely has a role with Conner healthy than Darrell.
Yeah, I could see that. I mean, I think that my perspective on the backfield is that like I just don't think the Chase Edmonds role like exists right now. Like I kind of think it's Conner. And then, like, whatever you think is left over is going to be split between Eno and Darrell, like in some way. But I would say that Eno is probably the lead in that scenario, and Darrell is like a pass catching type specialist. So I think if Conner were to get hurt, then maybe we'd see that dynamic similar to last year between the 2 top backs. Yeah,
I guess that is interesting. Yeah, I mean Darrell had a versatile role in Kansas City, and it's hard to really evaluate there because it really felt like Kansas City never truly knew or was never really truly doing what they wanted with their running backs. Maybe that was the injury situation with CEH. I don't know. Lamar, I love. Is there anyone else here that you would consider above him? Oh, wait, we have Mark Andrews.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, let's get our stack in now. I think Lamar is, again, like just super undervalued. I know the Lamar talk is like all over the place now because of that Sando QB thing yesterday, which is just like outrageous to me. But yeah, like, I mean, if we're talking fantasy football, like, I mean, I think regular football, he's great anyway. But if we're talking fantasy football, there's not a huge difference between this dude and the quarterbacks that are going in the couple rounds before. I mean, I don't think that Justin Herbert is even close. I know that he had a great season and he threw for a ton of yards, ton of touchdowns last year. He runs a little bit. But like to me, it's like Allen, it's Lamar, it's Kyler. Like I want those guys over the Herberts.
So there's something pretty sexy about this team so far. We have 3 guys that I think are, I don't want to say favorites, but like very plausible that they're number 1 at their position with Lamar, Chase, and Mark Andrews. And then 2 running backs here that I feel very good about that, we could, probably getting not only substantial value, but just drafting where I think they're going a little later. So this is a fire team.
Yeah, I'm still kind of on like team hyperfragile. I feel like last year, I mean, I don't know. I felt like the public sentiment at least was that it wasn't as effective as it was 2 years ago. But part of that I think was just like the increased volume of drafts using that strategy. I don't think that the strategy has gotten any worse. I still think that like all the tenets that you and Leone and a couple other guys have talked about, like I still think those are still really, really strong. And if we're starting to get some of these running back discounts back, like we should be taking advantage.
Completely agree. And I think what happened last year is also the running backs that, historically were getting drafted in like the 10th round. They were falling to the 13th as fewer people drafted running backs. And so that's where like I adjusted last year to, hey, I want to draft like 2 early, but now instead of doing 4, I'm going to grab like maybe 1 around the 8th round, but then 2 in like that 13th. And now finish with 5, but I'm not devoting as much of my early draft round capital to it. And that's where you could still get those kind of late values. And that did work a lot last year. I do agree with you. Too many people just went for 4 just because it worked the previous year, because someone decided to win with only 4. And it wasn't done, the right way, optimally. It didn't give the right kind of structure. And then also just the whole macro aspects of wide receivers being so heavy. Okay, back on the clock. Ooh, I do not want to enter pilot mode. No, I do not. Okay. Had to click that one correctly. I do like Cooper. There's Thielen at the top there too. There's a lot of guys here that are all decent options. Anyone jump out at you? We got 8 seconds.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not seeing a correlation spot for us, so I'm good with Cooper or Thielen here.
Okay. My thoughts on Cooper are people are still kind of hesitant with the whole Watson. If it is true that Watson ends up only getting 8 games, which means most importantly that he will be around in the playoffs and he's going to have a half a season to get that chemistry and the value for those guys, I think Cooper's a bit of a value here, as well as basically any Cleveland pass catcher.
Yeah, and I was talking about this with Pat Mayo a couple weeks ago. Like, there's still kind of this chance that even if Watson doesn't play, that Cooper just becomes like an insane target hog for whoever the quarterback ends up being, whether it's Brissett or they sign Cam or whoever. Cooper still has juice. It's not like he can't play. Like, they moved him because it felt like more of a money thing for me. So, definitely still buying.
Completely agree. And the David Bell news, we don't know how serious it is. Apparently, it's not the most serious, but he's still starting training camp on the PUP. And I did see a role where David Bell was going to have a bit more of the underneath, catching a bit more of those early passes. Maybe that actually helps Cooper a bit more now. But if your offense is Cooper, Donovan People-Jones, David Njoku as your pass catchers, there's a 10 plus target games could be the norm for Cooper, even with a bad QB. Do you think Jimmy has any chance of ending up there? I know they've got the cap space with a little wiggle room, and especially if they wanted to, trade away a running back.
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing for a guy like Amari Cooper. Just get the locked in low 8 out targets. Perfect.
Yeah. I think if Watson was suspended for the year, that would have been their likely play because it is still a pretty decent team. I find it hard they'd make that move unless they're getting him as a free agent for very cheap. If they're only going to have him need it for 8 games.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of feel like the Niners have backed themselves in a little bit where it's like they've been a little more public with this stuff where I don't know if they can really enter the season with Jimmy G on the roster. Like, I've kind of changed gears on that.
Yeah, and that's actually bumped up my thoughts on Trey Lance a little. While I always thought that Trey Lance would be the starter, thought that there was a possibility that, hey, if he really does play poorly, they could always go back to Jimmy. Okay. Christian Kirk, Kadarius Toney, Michael Thomas, Hunter Renfrow. I think we're still not looking to go with any other position besides wide receiver. Don't really see straight up too much correlation here. We do have the Kamara, the Thomas. Any thoughts?
I would probably go with either Burks or Toney here. Those are my 2 favorite guys, I think. And Burks is obviously way lower in ADP.
I'm going to take Toney for that reason. Yeah. Even though this is the group that loves Burks. 97 ADP. We've got 91 coming up here. So could even snag him there if we still wanted without having to go for the crazy reach.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, I'm hoping that Toney is comfortable just playing. Yeah, there goes Burks.
And I like grabbing Toney because, as you said, with one of your truths, Daniel Jones, you see as your best value quarterback. And when I make sure that my bye weeks align. I think Russell Wilson has the same bye week as Daniel Jones, so that one doesn't work out. But if you look at Lamar here is 10, Daniel Jones is 9, getting that early stack partner here doesn't hurt. What are your overall kind of tight end thoughts here? We went with the elite tight end, so we can definitely wait for a while. But if you miss out on those elite guys, what's your strategy traditionally been this year?
I mean, I still think that Hawkinson goes kind of late for I don't think a ton has changed pretty much last year when he was going round 5, 6. Now he goes in this 8th round range. So I'm still comfortable with him. And then there's also just like a bunch of like later guys that I feel like you can throw darts on. Like if you're making a 3 tight end build, young guys with upside. I don't know, like if I want to say too much, just in case we end up trying to draft one of those guys. But I don't know. I mean, I know we do the thing every year where it's like, oh, like tight ends, like kind of deep, but like there's enough guys that I feel like have like a big enough piece of the offense, especially like in the red zone scoring areas, where you can kind of put it together in a couple different ways. And I think that the market actually is like really out of whack because, you know, you heard before with Fant as one of my truths, like, I mean, he already had really poor quarterback play. Now he's going like, I mean, dramatically lower than he was last year.
Yeah. All right. I know you're not huge on Michael Thomas, but we do have a little correlation with Alvin Kamara here. He is now become an ADP value at 83 versus 91. Is that the play, or is there someone else that you'd rather kind of do a slight reach?
Well, we could get the Claypool run back on the Baltimore stack week 17.
Maybe get that later.
All right.
Let's do it. We're gambling. We're not reaching what 84 to 102.
Name of the show is value.
Gosh, where is
you know
that?
what? You throw me off because you have the ETR ranks in here, and I never do that. Like I always just do it by ADP, and then I look at the ranks while I'm drafting. So I'm always like, oh, like when I see the top of the board, I just assume that's who's coming off. You know what I mean? Like that's how I'm looking at it.
No, I like doing this just because it gives me that feel for, hey, who is in my bucket? Who's my contention? I think after doing enough of these and looking at the ETR ranks and such, we get familiar enough with, you know, where those buckets are, which players we prefer. But here it kind of, and like, if someone steals it, someone steals it. It's not that like we're that high on Claypool that we want to draft him over ADP. It's more of what we have the Baltimore aspect, so that week 17 correlation, getting a little Pittsburgh is nice.
There's other ways to get that. It doesn't have to be Claypool.
100%. This is also where I've personally been hammering RBs. Basically, like right after that Traylon Burks, maybe a little before Garrett Wilson or around Garrett Wilson as well, because I do think there's a lot of guys in this area that are really going to pop.
I agree with that.
Anyone here that you would consider maybe instead of that Claypool aspect, starting to get like maybe a 4 or 5 RB build?
Yeah, there's a couple guys I like here a decent amount. We'll see who comes to us. I don't know. Like how scared are you of the stream of the chat sniping us here? I don't know.
Nah, it's too. For the most part, the chat is pretty sharp, and that they are focusing more on their own correlation on their stacks and such. And I think doing enough of these, they know which players I like, which players I don't. They know what ETR ranks are. So I'm all about like, hey, saying it what it is, delivering the value. If they steal it, they steal it, and then we can just complain.
All right, cool.
Dak is falling here. Doesn't work for us, but someone's going to get some nice QB value there.
Yeah, that is definitely nice. I'm curious to see if he runs more this year, because if he's not running, he's kind of a step down than certainly what we've thought about him in previous years. But I think even coming into this one, oh baby,
all right,
let's go.
We're back here. We have Claypool if we want it. If we were looking at running this,
I was gonna say CPAT.
Okay,
we get a little correlation with Connor week 17. And I just think Patterson has a chance to take on like a huge chunk of this offense. They don't have a ton of receiver depth. The running backs that are there really aren't impressive. I know that Algier has gotten like a lot of love as a rookie, but you know, day 3 rookie backs, like it's not really my thing.
Right. I feel like the love he's gotten is because everyone was like, oh my God, Atlanta needs a running back. Right. And Atlanta doesn't want to do what they did to Patterson last year because the injury and such. Like, I completely get that. And I think going into the season, that makes complete sense. Like, yeah, we don't want to run or play this one player who literally catches our balls, runs everything, does the kind of goal line plays, and now they're going to get hurt. Like, obviously, you're scheming for that not to happen. When the games actually start and you're limited and you see the talent on the field, like, it's hard to ignore it. And he really is. He showed amazing talent and versatility last year. I love him on DraftKings, and I like him a lot on FanDuel. I mean, on Underdog. Yeah. If I draft on best ball there, I'd be there.
Totally agree, man. Team
Speaking of
CPAT.
Underdog, announcing today their latest funding round at just under a $500 million valuation. Congrats to the Underdog team and everyone there. Big things ahead for them.
Yeah, it's sick. I mean, I'm in great guys, obviously. I mean, we know a bunch of them. We talked to a bunch of them, but like, I mean, just what they've done full circle, like from the draft days, I think it's hard to understate, I think, the success they've had.
100%. Okay, what are we looking at? So we did see Claypool go. Saw Garrett Wilson. He's another one of my talents I like. Alex Berg is just eating up that value. He's the one who took the Eckler, got Dak here to pair with the Tony Pollard, and CeeDee Lamb. Wow. Monster team. We're going to have to take a look at that one after the draft. Okay, coming back around here, we've got that third running back. I think we're still waiting on QB and tight end. So running back, wide receiver, Ramondre, Melvin Gordon, both strong plays here. What are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm such a Rachaad White guy. I don't know what your thoughts are on him.
I wouldn't take him above one of these two.
Okay. I would probably prefer Gordon of those two guys.
I'm good with that. I think thought process being like, I'm getting a lot of White. So I think he's probably one of my like 3 highest owned running backs. And like, yeah, his ADP has moved up a little, but most of the time I was getting him was in that like mid 120 range and such. And Melvin Gordon, like this is value on him. He still has elite upside for if there is an actual Javonte injury. And it's interesting. Almost all the arguments that we have for Javonte Williams and why he's moved up to the second round, they pretty much fit for Melvin Gordon too. And like you might argue and say like, well, yeah, but Javonte's younger and he has so much of better talent. But like Melvin Gordon on a per play basis was pretty much just as efficient as Javonte last year. Now, yeah, a year older versus Javonte and such. But like if Javonte does get hurt, there's no reason really if Melvin Gordon doesn't immediately slot into an RB1.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that the biggest known about this team, or I think the thing that we feel the best about is like this offense is probably going to jam. So like, how good does Melvin Gordon even really have to be to produce fantasy points if Williams gets hurt, or even if he's just getting like a decent enough role in the offense?
Right. Yeah, and so here's another interesting one. Deciding between Rachaad White and Melvin Gordon with our running backs here, grabbing Melvin Gordon, we could potentially do just a 4 RB build. Because we see these guys as having everyday value. Rachaad White, I think he can eventually work his way into that role, but like he also may not actually be playing on most plays if Fournette just has his full-time role. And so I'm more willing to take Rachaad White when I've either got some Brady or I'm going with a 6-7 RB build where I want the upside plays. Here, that safety, and it's not really safety, but it's just like dependability aspect for if I do, maybe Alvin Kamara does get suspended a couple games early on, and we need Melvin Gordon to start the season. Rachaad White's not providing that.
Yeah, I mean, we saw this with Keyshawn Vaughn. Like, there's definitely a chance that Rachaad White is just like a stone zero, and that's not appetizing, obviously.
No, very true. Okay, we're getting to a place where RBs we've got 4. I don't think as we said, we maybe even go with this. We could see what happens in like around 17, 18. Our wide receivers are starting to feel a little light just because we've been devoting capital elsewhere. What do you see that what tickles your fancy?
Where are we? We're in like the 120s right now.
There's Jarvis. There's Gallup. We're scrolling a little further. Okay, Jarvis just went.
Yeah, this is kind of a tough range for us, I think.
Maybe grab Gesicki and just say, hey, we're done with tight end.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that maybe. I mean, it's a decent enough spot, I think, for him. I don't love the receivers, and I feel like Gesicki can give us. I mean, he still has upside, obviously, as well.
I agree. Completely agree. All right, so we'll grab him there. We're now done with tight end. Agreed. No wide receivers that we really fell in love with there. And with this build, it's looking like we're probably going to do a 2-4-10-2 or more likely maybe a 2-5-9-2. And so when we know we're going to have that many wide receivers either way, I'm okay with like, even though grabbed out Mark Andrews, taking Gesicki here, going with there. Yeah, Eagles is talking about maybe you go with a naked A-Rod. He's just one of those guys that, like, from a structure, it's not as valuable to me because I want him with the pass catchers. If it was Justin Fields getting that same level of value, I'd probably would have been more willing to do that. Speaking of naked A-Rod, he basically showed up to training camp naked. But
it's unbelievable, this guy. I mean, you eat a little bit of clay and all of a sudden you just become a psycho. It's remarkable. I mean, whatever. He's living his best life. I respect it. He's just out of crate. He's out of pocket.
All right, catching up. Yeah, where are the mods? I'm the mod. I just put Goose in timeout. I don't know what a W was. Maybe at first he was throwing a lot of W's. I feel like this draft deserves some W's, but no, it turns out he was just spamming. Okay. Coming up back. So yeah, what quarterbacks should we be thinking about, to pair? We know that Jameis, we've got 2 pass catchers there. We still talked about that Daniel Jones. I'm never going to say no to that.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think that those are the 2 main guys.
Tua?
Right. We could look at Tua, pocket quarterback. So definitely is going to be pretty well correlated with the pass catchers. I guess that's kind of, I mean, like, there's always, like, you can still backdoor like a Trevor Lawrence because I think that Zay Jones is, like, pretty undervalued. Evan Ingram, obviously, I mean, we wouldn't take a third tight end right now, but just generally speaking, like, there's ways I think to kind of backdoor the Jags and they're potentially exciting this year.
Yep. I saw someone asked earlier, Christian Kirk, because you preferred Kadarius Toney over him, which is not an issue at all. I kind of agree, but I do like Christian Kirk. What are your thoughts there?
I mean, there's a chance that he's just like a hog, right? Like, I mean, they paid him a ton of money. They have to kind of justify that a little bit. I would see that the passing game is pretty concentrated on, like, him, Ingram, Jones. Like, I don't know about Marvin Jones. Like, obviously he's aging. He's going to be probably effective with his targets, but how many targets is he going to get? And they seem kind of done with Visca. So I think that those 3 guys are going to do a lot of the work.
Zay Jones reports have been very strong. I've been kind of on him into the offseason in the 18th, 20th round, and it sounds like he's playing that X role and just Lawrence is looking for him. So keeping an eye on there. Jahan Dotson, Robbie Anderson, DJ Chark, all guys that we're higher on than market that are coming up to the ADP. Or we get a little value on Tua, call that a day, get a little correlation. What are you thinking?
So it's tough. The Tua thing is tough for me just because Gesicki's our second tight end. Like, I don't know, like, how often we're using those scores. So I'm a little more tempted maybe to go with one of the young receivers. I know that Dotson, well, this is like about on ADP, I think, for Dotson. I think that's probably fine.
It is directly. Exactly.
So, and we've been down on him a little bit and Dynasty type stuff, but, Levitan, I think, has made some good arguments that, hey, they drafted this guy 16th overall. Like, he's going to play. When Wentz is on, he's not bad.
Where did Dotson go to college?
Penn State, of course.
Huh. And Levitan was saying what?
I know. It's the thing that's tough is that, like, Penn State has had some good dudes, so it's, like, tough to avoid his cockiness about the school. But yeah, I mean, like it's from, like, a rookie profile standpoint, like, not a super attractive prospect, like, later breakout 4-year player. But you just look at these guys who get drafted in the first round, and it's like they just get the ball, like, they get targeted, and there's not a ton of weapons in this offense. Like, I'm really not buying that Logan Thomas is, like, going to come back, like, at this age, like, with the late injury, and, like, just be able to, like, vacuum targets like he had maybe the last couple seasons, and there's different quarterback in play. So yeah, I think that Dotson definitely has some ceiling that I haven't really opened myself up to yet. And certainly, like, if we're going to be taking, like, receivers at volume, like, let's make them young. Let's make sure they have some upside. And I think Dotson probably fits that bill.
I think Dotson or Curtis Samuel, one of those two is substantially going to outperform their ADP because I don't see, like, 3 wide receivers with obviously Scary Terry is going to eat his. But agreed between Dotson and Curtis. And if Curtis, like, for whatever reason is not able to come back, then I think, Dotson's the perfect fit there. Devontae Parker was going to be an interesting one just because of our Miami run back, but we don't have him that high from an ADP. let's see. Chowder right here may, I don't know, like if Gesicki falls to us at 150, it's hard to pass up on that ADP value.
Yeah. That's late enough, I think, where we would probably just do it.
Yeah, I agree. All right, and there we go. We'll take that. We will just eat up that value. So we've got 2 QB tight end stacks. I think your point is definitely interesting and noted, where we stacked the QB tight end behind our QB tight end, and our first QB tight end are 2 elite ones at that position. But that said, like, I think we're still making a bet on that offense as a whole with Miami. And hopefully just Gesicki, like, maybe can play into that flex role, play a little ping pong aspects here. And we got substantial value on the 2 aspect.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's still a chance that, like, Tua is really good, right? Like, he was a top pick, and they have some good weapons. So I'm not fully out on him yet.
Yeah. I'm scrolling through back in chat, taking a look. Thoughts on the J-Rob situation? Obviously, quite a surprise that he's not hitting the pop, and looks like he may actually be ready for the season, a la Cam Akers. Any thoughts there?
I mean, I still think that they'll probably ease him in a little bit, and it's a new coaching staff, which I always have questions about. But Robinson has definitely been good when he's on the field. Like, definitely deserves to be going a little bit higher, maybe Etienne a little bit lower. But I don't know if I'm like at aggressively targeting J-Rob status, but definitely like way more comfortable with it.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Another good question up here from Lindank is, how do you kind of build in those players that you're down on? Are you just saying, hey, never going to draft them? Is it focusing specifically on the roster builds, the strategy, the stacks, the correlation?
Yeah, like you get those guys when you're taking them as correlation pieces. You're taking them past ADP. Like there's always a price, I think, where we should probably be willing to draft guys, especially like if we're drafting at volume. Like if you're only doing like 5 or 10 drafts, like take who you want. Like it doesn't matter. But like someone like you who is going to be doing like a million of these things, like you're probably not just going to go blank on a guy if you don't like him, if the value's there, your favorite word. So I think value and correlation still has to trump some of our player takes.
Yeah, for me, at no point pretty much am I ever going to say like, hey, I'm 100% not drafting this player. If they fall to the right spot, then I'm willing to do it. Corey Davis, ETR, we're big on him. We think he actually comes out starting in 2 wide receiver sets. Any argument here or another player that anything else would be a substantial ADP reach?
No, I'm comfortable without reaching.
Okay.
With not reaching here. I think that the Davis stuff is interesting just because, like, obviously he's coming off the contract. They just drafted a receiver at 10. So the competition, I think, is very, very tight. But, I mean, all these Jets guys are really just bets on Zach Wilson, right? Like, if he's good, all these guys are going to find ways to pay dirt. And I would say that Davis is probably still their best red zone option.
Yeah, and I mean, Corey Davis, like, he feels like he's been in the league for a while. He's still only 27 years old, and he'll be 27 throughout this entire season. Like, that's still peak of your wide receiver years. It wouldn't shock me, like, if he's able to just, produce and hold off at least the full move from Garrett Wilson taking over 2 wide receiver sets. And it's interesting because, yeah, I mean, Elijah Moore is probably the lowest wide receiver I'm on of the 3, and I still like him. But just, I think the value is just too high for where Garrett Wilson's going at like 110. Corey Davis going at like 165 and such. So I'm taking them when it fits.
And you love being able to get a guy that, like you said, like we know he'll play. Round 14, like getting guys that we know will play a decent amount of snaps. Like, I mean, even if he got overtaken to 2 wide sets, like I just don't really see this being like a 2 wide team anyway. So, let's get it. Let's get our points.
Right. I mean, yeah, the tight end situation is so interesting too. Like when you bring in Conklin, you have, bring in a Conklin, bring in Uzoma. No one knows which is going to play which role, which one's going to be more blocker. I'm not expecting to randomly start doing 2 tight end sets. Like that's not their style. It gives you a little more, just the ambiguity probably gives you a little more confidence that they're willing to do the 3 wide receiver sets.
Yep.
All right. We're getting a little ugly here. I think we're still set on going with wide receivers here. Sammy Watkins from an ADP. Kendrick Bourne gives us the correlation aspect, and I like him as a player. Anything else you're seeing here that jumps out?
Nothing's really jumping out to me right now. I mean, I think that the Patriots, I could really see us looking back in like 6 months and being like, wow, why weren't we buying more of the Mac Jones year 2 leap? Because I feel like it's like a universal. It's a kind of like universally accepted that like he's at least competent, and like the natural curve on those quarterbacks is that like year 2 you do more, but everyone is so focused on like, Bill Belichick's kind of a boomer, like they're just going to run the ball. Like that might not be true.
Yeah, I mean, I think who's calling plays? What is it like having 2 defensive coordinators as like an offensive coordinator? I think that's where probably a lot of the hesitation is. Everyone still remembers the game where they had like 6. How many passing attempts did they have in that one game?
I mean, I think it was like legitimately like 3 or 4. Like it was like the most outrageous thing ever.
It was such an outlier, obviously, with the weather and everything. Right. But like, it's still in your mind that like literally they're content winning a game, and like, yeah. So, I agree. And then also last year we kept thinking like, okay, well, who's going to catch the ball from New England? Like Jacoby Myers was still your one. Hunter Henry had a lot more of the touchdown side of things. Yeah, and then what? They draft Tyquan Thornton. Like it's not much to write home about. And so maybe Kendrick Bourne gives you that kind of almost like a Debo role.
And he's always managed to be efficient, like even in San Francisco, like, before coming out here, like always productive per touch. So you love that.
2 years ago, he caught a Hail Mary that advanced some teams in the playoffs at the end of the game. That was big. All right, so we have 3 rounds left. As we were saying, we're definitely going to have at least 9 wide receivers. The question is, do we have 5 running backs or 10 wide receivers? Usually in those situations, I lean with going 5 running backs. This is probably where I'd consider, because it seems like there's a little more running back value than wide receiver.
Yeah, there's a couple of guys I like here, definitely.
Agreed. Yeah, I would say... let's see. I mean, the Mostert news is all positive. Jamal Williams, I've just been high on all summer. We have our choice of either of those. I'd go Jamal. What do you think? I mean, well, Mostert we do have with the Tua. I don't know. I'm good with either. What do you think?
I think maybe we take the slight correlation with the Miami stuff and we take Mostert. I think that we're kind of splitting hairs here. I feel like that's always a good tiebreaker.
Okay, I'm okay with that. Yeah, let's do it. Oh, shoot.
No.
I forgot that we had something in the queue, so I was just going to start and realize it wouldn't have fallen. Okay, we took Jamal.
Still got it. That's fine.
I'm okay with that. Just had to do something.
Yeah, I mean, Jamal is like kind of interesting because I felt like last year I was like absolutely pounding him, and has the situation changed that much? I don't know. I mean, I guess that's probably your argument, right? Like, I mean, you have a lot of him.
Yeah, for me, it is. We're making a bet that Detroit's going to be a better team this year. What we have seen is 2 things with Detroit last year. One is that they still want to use Jamal Williams as kind of a ground and pounder, and they're not confident with DeAndre Swift in the red zone. So there's a chance that Jamal Williams plays a bit of the kind of red zone role and still gets his touches. The second thing we saw last year is that when DeAndre Swift goes down, they're willing to give Jamal Williams a heavy amount of the touches. I think he was averaging around 19 touches in the games that Jamal was down. Now, we didn't like it that much last year because Detroit was so bad. So even with those 19 touches, he wasn't doing much with it. But if we assume that the team has progressed and is a better team this year, which it's the reason why Levitan, Silva made bets on the overs. I think over Lions bets in the season is like one of the most popular bets at most sports books for season totals. So if we believe that's true, now we're getting the same situation with Jamal, same role, but with more upside because of an offensive standpoint.
Yeah, no, I like it, and it's hard to argue. I mean, I felt like there were times last year that it could, and I know he was coming off injury, but there were times last year where I felt like Swift, without Jamal Williams, definitely could have been featured more, and he wasn't. So that speaks kind of volumes to what they want.
And the one last thing I'll say where I think Jamal actually fits this bit, like, yes, Mostert had the correlation, but one thing that Jamal had is we are going with a lighter team and we need those points, especially potentially
Yeah.
early if there is any suspension. Moster's more of a kind of boom or bust, I would say. They have 3 running backs. Even last year, when you look at the alternating between the various running backs, like there wasn't consistency. So I think we're going to see a decent amount of games where Mostert doesn't do anything. But the upside is that he actually plays into a regular, role, is still explosive, fastest guy in the NFL, blah, blah, blah. Jamal gives us more stability for this lineup.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I think that's like the value of these kind of strategies, right? Is you feel confident about the points that you're going to get. I mean, even if Kamara gets suspended, I think we'll still be in pretty good shape.
Yeah, agreed. Okay, it is kind of pick your poison now. I put Cedric Wilson at the top for the correlation with Tua. Duvernay went previously, so we don't have that. DPJ is actually a strong one, too, because of the news that's come out. Any thoughts?
I'm still probably leaning Wilson here. That was going to be my suggestion. Let's just get the last guy that we think is going to, play a decent amount of snaps in this offense.
Yeah.
I'm still holding out some slight hope for David Bell. It's like incredible. Like, I just love this. Like, we've pumped this guy in Dynasty so much. And I think DPJ probably starts on the outside. He's always been super efficient. So he's fine. Like, I don't think that I would ever have an issue with him, but it's just not like it.
Yeah. For me, the DPJ is kind of one of two things. One, it's David Bell is legitimately has a risk with the injury, doesn't play much. DPJ starts in two wides. Okay. Second is if Deshaun Watson isn't suspended that much, now DPJ I think is a lot more valuable because just, more likely, more dynamic, getting the downfield. The problem is those two don't really go together because if David Bell has a slow start, well, he's still, those games aren't with Deshaun Watson. So for DPJ to have that value at the end of the season with Deshaun Watson, chances are David Bell still is back and healthy and playing then. I mean, I guess DPJ could just take the role early on and run away with it, but I think it's a little unlikely.
Yeah, that all makes sense to me.
All right. So Pitt and New England are the two here. No real guys at this point that I'd be considering. You can go Tylan Wallace as the last real stack partner for Baltimore, or we just kind of go for who we think is the best wide receiver who's going to, contribute.
I tend to lean that side of it just because I think between James Washington and for me, Randall Cobb, like I think that there's two guys who are going to play and have the potential to, score some fantasy points. I think Cobb has like the most outright upside. Like, they don't have a ton of receivers. He has a ton of familiarity with Rodgers. But Washington's going to probably play a ton immediately.
What's the play? I'm good with either.
I would like to go Cobb here, I think. I think since we have so many receivers, we don't necessarily need like the points early. Let's just chase the most overall upside.
I like it. All right. Let's take a quick review. How do we do? What are your thoughts? So starting off, we got our QB. We got Lamar. We got Tua, an elite guy to pair with a middle late guy with our stack and great value. I feel good there. Talk me through our running backs.
I mean, I love our running backs. Like I think that again, the Kamara stuff is what swings a lot of it for us, just because we would love for him to not be suspended, but like he's still going to be there most likely in the money weeks. And we have enough running backs to get us there. Otherwise, James Conner, obviously a huge value. I love CPAT. And then we have like two guys who are just like meat and potatoes. Like they're just going to get us some points. And in the best possible contingency state, like they could still have a decent ceiling.
Yep, I like it. All right, draft ender. Let's go back to that entry. Ooh, that was a nice 69 best ball entry.
Well, now we have to win it.
No wonder it was such a nice lineup. Okay. Wide receivers. Anytime you can start with Jamar Chase, you're going to have a pretty strong one. We then, it's obviously on the lighter side from not every position can be the strongest. And I'd say this definitely is our weakest position, but that's why we do have 9 of them with one guy being Jamar Chase at the top. I'd say it's a mix. It's a mixed bag of you've got the steady guy that has upside. You've got the younger guy with upside. You've got the injury risk. Then we've got some youth. Then we've got some steady. Like it really feels like a well-rounded group, which is a bit different. A lot of times A lot of times I've just got a lot of young upside guys, but this definitely feels a bit more well-rounded.
Yeah, and obviously I talked down about Michael Thomas, but if we're trying to win $1 million or you know what I mean, like if we're trying to win the 7-figure prize, like we need a guy like that to show up and resume his wide receiver 1 type status. Like we need these younger guys to show up. So I think it's fine. And, that's the beauty of getting those. I think the fact that we have the good running backs, the good quarterback, like we're kind of elite everywhere. And we still have Jamar Chase. So we still have like that anchor cornerstone of the position. So I still feel pretty good.
Completely agree. I think the name of the game for this really was value. If you look across, like it just felt like some really strong values that fit our lineup worked out well. I mean, here we've got a round and a half of value on Tua. We got a round between the 3rd and 4th round on James Conner here. Jamal Williams, a round or so late. I feel like there was a...
Well, we got Thomas late when we took him.
Yeah. Okay. So you're getting almost a round there. So that definitely felt like the name here. And we just kind of eat it up while still trying to get our correlation, still trying to get players that we like. Overall, I feel pretty good about it. I like it.
Let's get it, man. I mean, like this is what we're talking about. Like this is why it's draft season. Like we get to do these, we get to be excited. And then like Alex Berg, you want to talk about value? I mean, my goodness. I feel like every value we talked about, like the whole show, he pretty much got.
That was impressive. Let's see this team. So it's got Kyler and Dak. Hey, normally you don't reach to grab Dak when you're grabbing Kyler, but when you're getting the value that you got there, he has multiple stack partners with Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. That worked out really well. He got Eckler at 10, so it just gives you a bit of a unique build when you start off with Eckler and Lamb. Let's see what else we got here. So lots of wide receivers. What we go with 8 wide receivers, which feels about right given the start. Love DJ Moore. This is probably the only weak spot here with an Alberto, Hayden Hurst. No stacks with your tight ends and 3 very late ones. But I don't hate the strategy of just going kind of 3 late if you don't end up with an elite one.
Yeah, I mean it's the price you have to pay, right? I mean you took all this value. You took 2 early quarterbacks. So you have to kind of punt it in. But again, Alberto still has some upside. Like I actually kind of like Hayden Hurst. Like it's a great offense. Like if you're going to take a tight end late, take one in a great offense. And then kind of similar argument, I guess, for Trey McBride. Obviously he's behind Ertz, but super talented player, like over 1,000 yards last year in college. Pretty rare for a college tight end to do that. And, it's kind of like a matter of like when, not if with him. I'm really curious to see how they use him just because like I feel like the tight ends is just by name only in that offense. Like there's definitely a chance that like they roll him and Ertz out there a lot together just because they're 2 of their more talented pass catchers.
And if Ertz goes down, like that's one of the few, there's probably about 3 to 5 tight end handcuff situations that I very much like. And off the top of my head, those would be the Arizona one. That would be the Denver one. You've got 2 there. Also, I'd say the Las Vegas one is probably one of the most valuable ones. If Waller was to go down, Foster Moreau, we've seen kind of given 80% of that role. It's just not a common position that it says like, hey, there's a next up kind of play. But McBride, I think if he can perform, he fits that. And then same with Dulcich, and that's just, hey, talented rookies. All right, this has been fun. We'll do one more question because it's kind of relevant to what we're talking about. Eagles asking what are our thoughts on kind of grabbing 2 late guys in the same team. For me, I think it's got to fit one of two things. One, it's got to be a stack. And so if I went with Justin Fields, I missed out on Darnell Mooney, I'm not only drafting Cole Kmet, I could see myself grabbing 2 of Pringle, Velas, maybe into N'Keal Harry. The second is if I don't have a stack partner, it's got to be an offense that I'm really bullish on. And DPJ Bell, I'm probably not grabbing both of those. Unless you're doing it for hey, you believe the Watson aspect. Zay Laviska, hey, if you believe that Lawrence is really going to revamp this team without Urban Meyer. I think that's the thing is, hey, it's got to be a bet on the offense or have that correlation. What are your thoughts?
Right. Yeah, I agree. And I'll just add that chances are if the offense is really good, you're not going to be able to get those guys in those rounds on the same team. So I think kind of de facto, we're saying mostly the correlation aspect.
Yeah, exactly. All right, Dave, I see you in chat. Shoot me a DM. We can roast yours off stream. We're ahead in the hour mark, but Dave, ETR guy, all the love. But yeah, as we round it out, let's see. So yeah, anyone that ever wants to chat more about best ball, has questions, wants your drafts rated, you can join me in the Jolly Jokers Discord. Each day, I'm kind of spending a lot of my time kind of just talking through different review, ratings, reviews of drafts there. So happy to help out. Put that link in the chat. And then Anthony, what about you? Where can people find you? Anything you have going on, people should be aware of? Let the people know.
Yeah, I mean, just find me on Twitter at Amico, and keep in touch with all of our Dynasty stuff. We just did a rankings update earlier this week. We'll do them pretty much every 2 weeks through August, and then every week once the season starts. So lots of Dynasty movement. I think right now, I know obviously redraft, the best ball stuff, it gets the love, and it should. Great formats, but don't forget about those Dynasty teams. There's still plenty of moves you can make this time of year to get your team ready to win.
100%. I love it. All right. Well, chat, you were fantastic today. About 150 strong throughout the show. Give the stream like, subscribe, all that love. Reach out on Twitter. Follow Amico. What is it? Amico? I think that's the Twitter name.
Yeah.
All right. There you go. All right. It was great. We will see you all on Thursday with a special guest that I think you guys are going to like.